Good morning. Welcome to North Chapel on this Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. My name is Hope Yeager, and I am your service coordinator today. Our minister, Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, is away this week. We welcome Bob Williamson as today's reflector. He will share his nearly 38 years of gun reform work from the shooting tragedy at his children's school that prompted his advocacy to state houses in Illinois and Vermont, transforming the political landscape around firearms with life-saving, evidence-based policies. You can find Bob's entire bio in the order of service. There are also many announcements in the order of service, also on the church website, about what's happening here at North Chapel. I urge you to read those announcements at some point. There are hearing devices at the back of the sanctuary and large print versions of the hymns and the order of service if you need those. Here is your reminder to turn off or silence your cell phone or pager. After service today, there will be coffee hour downstairs in the social hall. And if you are visiting or new, we urge you to sign the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. Thank you to Tatum Barnes for being here to lead and direct the Children's Spiritual Exploration Program today. Does anybody have any other announcements? Okay. Our worship theme for February is progress. I found an essay on a Substack called Interesting Daily Thoughts. The author refers to themselves only as George, so I say thank you to George. I don't know who George is, but they really zero in on my own struggles with making progress. I'm just going to read an excerpt from the beginning of this essay, and I hope you find these words as helpful as I do. It's titled, Stop Waiting for Conditions to Improve, posted on the 19th of February. Most progress is delayed not by difficulty, but by postponement. People wait for more time, more clarity, more confidence, better circumstances. They imagine a future moment where action will feel easier. That moment rarely arrives. Conditions are almost never ideal. There is always fatigue, uncertainty, distraction, or risk. Those who move forward are not spared these things. They simply stop treating them as prerequisites. They understand that waiting for perfect conditions is a refined form of avoidance. History confirms this. Businesses are built during recessions. Books are written amid disorder. Strength is forged while life is inconvenient. The idea that improvement requires calm, certainty, or readiness is comforting, but false. Growth happens in motion, not preparation. Now we will have a time of silence to bring ourselves more fully into this space and into this moment.
It's great to see you here this morning. So many of you know me. For those who don't, I'm Bob Williamson. I'm a founding board member of Gun Sense Vermont. I live in South Woodstock. My southern accent kicks in every now and then, just a warning. I really like our theme this month, progress, especially the idea that it can come glacially slow. And like glaciers, it leaves and cleaves behind a new landscape. Vermont State Senator Joe Major put it well in his remarks on February 1st from this pulpit about the importance of showing up, choosing not to give up, and our shared responsibility. Or as a friend of mine once said, if pro is the opposite of con, then progress is the opposite of Congress. I gave my first reflection on gun reform in the North Chapel 18 years ago this very month. Daniel Jantos invited me. Back then I had been at this work for 20 years. When Joan and I moved to Vermont in late 2004, I told myself the Green Mountain State had done pretty well for 2 centuries. Wait to see if it had any gun violence problems before I act. I didn't need to wait long. I read in the Vermont Standard about a fatal shooting in Reading by a man out on a condition of release for beating up his sister. Tragically, at his own birthday party, he shot and killed his best friend. His condition of release stipulated no alcohol or drugs. Forget that, there was drinking at this party. But it said nothing about his firearms being taken into custody. I called the Windsor County State's Attorney about this, and they explained that when guns were involved in Vermont, they had to jump through hoops. Hoops, I thought? Where's common sense? This was a violent offender, but that argument fell on deaf ears. Then in 2009, I got a phone call from a mom in Essex Junction. She said she got my number from the Vermont Attorney General's office. Her son took his life with a handgun, and they didn't own any firearms. Would I help her? Certainly, I said. I worked with the mom, Ji Woo, who was a professor at University of Vermont, for the better part of 2 years for a safe storage law that went nowhere, despite the fact that more than 103 Vermont youngsters had died from gun violence in the previous 20 years. Clearly, Vermont would benefit from a safe storage law. We finally got one 13 years later, but I get ahead of myself. So why did I start down the gun reform path 38 years ago? It wasn't an intellectual decision based on disturbing statistics. There are plenty of those. It was an emotional choice because of 2 very personal, vital statistics. My 2 daughters, Clare and Kate. Their school was ravaged by an armed intruder on May 20th, 1988 in Winnetka, Illinois. 8-year-old Nicky Corwin was killed and 5 other 6- and 7-year-olds were critically wounded. This was one of the first school shootings in the country. My children were spared, but only by dumb luck. We need so much better than dumb luck. Those are the cold facts, but let me share a bit of my road to Damascus moment that put me on this path. That day, May 20th, 1988, I sat on a commuter train in Chicago, coming home from work, listening to my Walkman radio, as a nightmare with guns unspooled in real time at my children's school. Without a cell phone, I had to sit for 45 minutes and hope for the best as I urged that hellishly slow train to speed up. As I stepped out onto the station platform to embrace my wife, that warm spring day felt as cold as January. I learned our children were safe, but one little boy was dead and the shooter was still at large in the neighborhood. A police helicopter hovered above. It felt like the copter's blades knocked chunks of sky out of thin air and sent them shattering at my feet. A welter of emotions raged inside me as guilt throbbed with this fact: my kids were spared, another was killed. Later that night, as I gathered shards of thought, I realized I couldn't undo what had happened, but I vowed to do all that made sense to prevent the next one. Experts say the closer you are to the epicenter, the longer the healing process. Our daughters heard the gunshots, the cries, the running feet, but fortunately they didn't see the killer in the deadly act. They were spared the long-term trauma of some of their schoolmates. Yes, children heal, adults too, but memories and scars linger. Solace came to me while working for sensible gun violence prevention. My path led me to the Illinois Council Against Handgun Violence, where I chaired several annual walks and created a contest for children whose words and pictures give voice to the unspeakable. The picture on today's order of service shows one of those walks I chaired for a decade. This was at Daley Plaza in the center of Chicago. Harold Ramis is there on the far left. You may remember him from Ghostbusters and several other films. Harold was our Grand Marshal twice. He's a remarkable guy. During the day, he was a substitute teacher at Beethoven School and Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago, and at night he was an improviser at Second City. And Jane Byrne was talking about Harold in her service coordinating duties a couple of weeks ago. Just a remarkable guy. Contests and walks are good. They empower and validate the weakest among us. But until we adults demand more from our lawmakers and ourselves, our children will remain in the line of fire. I remember at one of our walks, Howard Galler, the father of one of the children in the classroom where 5 children were shot. Howard thanked me for my work and added that his daughter Joanna still had nightmares 10 years after that horrible event. The scars linger for a lifetime. We had some successes in Illinois that made a difference. I won't list them now, but I will say it took 30 years to get an assault weapons ban. And it was only after the mass shooting at the Highland Park July 4th parade in 2022 that this became law. Understand, I grew up with guns, loved target shooting. I firmly believe in the Second Amendment, all 26 words, but I also believe James Madison had no idea his words would be twisted to allow rapid-fire combat-style assault rifles, armor-piercing bullets, and massive ammo clips to be sold 24/7 over the internet, no questions asked. I get pushback from extremists on the other side, but that's part of the territory. The night after I hosted a forum on public safety in Heartland, Vermont, I got a phone call at about 11 p.m. The caller said he wasn't from Vermont. I later checked, he was from Kentucky. He asked if I'd ever heard of the Second Amendment. I asked him if he could recite all 26 words of the Second Amendment. Silence on the other end. Then he said sarcastically, "You're a real hero, Bob," and he hung up. When it comes to public safety, everyone needs to be heard. But know this, gun violence is now the #1 cause of death of American children, not cancer, heart disease, or vehicle accidents. Think about that. And about how many times a day children ride in vehicles. That yearly death toll is the equivalent of 52 school buses full of kids driving off a cliff, all aboard and perishing. When did that become acceptable? Okay, there I was getting nowhere with a safe storage measure in Vermont when Sandy Hook happened. That massacre of 20 children and 6 educators in an elementary school was the 9/11 for parents. If a deeply disturbed young man could go into a school and murder kids and teachers with an assault weapon, what were we prepared to do about it? I was asked by USA Today newspaper to write a piece about Sandy Hook because I was a parent whose children had survived a firearm tragedy in their school. Let me tell you, every time one of those nightmares happens, they hit me hard. My opening paragraph set the tone. Looking into those darling children's faces, the 21st graders, I think back to tiny desks and chairs. Through my tears, I noticed these angels still have baby teeth. They barely had time to dream of the tooth fairy, let alone explore their world. All that promise and joy was cut down in a hailstorm of bullets, despite the heroic attempts of their principal and teachers who defended them like tigresses protecting their cubs. It's been 4 days as I write this since a deeply troubled young man shot his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School and wounded a Newtown, Connecticut, and I'm still trying to process this horror. I shared the tragedy at my children's school and offered some suggestions. The time for debating the NRA is over. They won that debate. That's why these tragedies keep happening. It's time for all of us, responsible gun owners and responsible citizens in general, to ask our lawmakers to do something smart. Ban high-capacity ammo clips and assault weapons. Fully fund the ATF so the National Instant Check system works. Require all states to share mental health information with federal authorities so bad risk individuals can't buy guns, and beef up support for mental health clinicians. Check the backgrounds of all gun buyers. 40% of all firearm sales occur without any check at all. Reasonable people can agree on reasonable solutions. Assault rifles and 33-round bullet clips don't pass that test. No rule bans on them infringe anyone's Second Amendment rights. Also, secure the gun you have at home. It could be used against you, as one firearm was in Newtown against its owner by her son, the alleged shooter who went on his rampage. Guns alone aren't always the answer, but they will always be part of a deadly problem until we get smarter. I ended the article with this thought: I will always remember the valor of those extraordinary ladies who laid down their lives in a school to protect their children. Remember them as we stand at this fork in the road. I hope it's a new day. Dawn was the name of Ms. Hochsprung, the principal who showed us what matters. And that new day came in the form of Gun Sense Vermont, barely 3 days after that massacre in Connecticut. Our group has worked hard for the past 13 years to enact historic and life-saving laws, measures that are transforming the Vermont landscape. A 17-hour waiting period, a safe storage law, raise the age for buying a gun, extreme risk protection orders, background checks, ban guns in polling places and hospitals, ban ghost guns, ban straw purchases, limited magazine size, and domestic violence protections. None of these were easy. Each one was like a 15-round heavyweight event, stretched over years, often with public forums before legislative committees, and then back and forth with lawmakers and the governor, but each one was worth the effort. That said, right now, a bill to ban guns in Burlington bars is stalled in the House Committee on Government Operations. Burlington has sought this for more than a decade, voting for it twice by wide margins. DeVell Williams would probably be alive today if it had been a law. Sadly, he was gunned down outside Red Square Tavern after a skirmish inside. Clearly, alcohol and guns are a deadly mix. This bill, S-131, passed through the full Vermont Senate last April, 17-12, but it's held up in that House committee. The words from the Windsor County State's Attorney from years ago echo in my ears. When it comes to guns in Vermont, we have to jump through hoops. My response? Just ask Vermonter Madeline Connery what it's like to endure the nightmare of an active shooter situation. Madeline Connery, who is from Vermont, is a junior at Brown University and experienced sheer terror at her college for 11 hours as the gunman was at large. Google her Vermont Digger article from December 19th, 2025. Her title is What It Feels Like to Realize Your Country Won't Protect You. Ask for more. We're asking for more at Gun Sense Vermont. House Bill 606, the so-called omnibus gun bill, is a blockbuster. House Bill 606 proposes 5 key measures that would bolster gun reform laws and add new benefits. First, it would make stealing a firearm of any value grand larceny. Second, it would increase penalties for second or subsequent offenses of firearm possession by prohibited persons. Third, it would prohibit possession of firearms by persons found by a court to pose a danger of harm to themselves or others as a result of mental illness. Fourth, it would prohibit the possession of machine guns and rapid-fire devices that allow a weapon to function like or mimic a machine gun. And fifth, it would permit firearms industry members to be held civilly liable for damages in public nuisance laws. That last one is really big. Keep in mind that Sandy Hook families won a $73 million settlement against Remington Firearms, the maker of the assault rifle used in that massacre, because Remington's marketing techniques broke Connecticut's consumer protection laws, and Vermont has similar consumer protection laws. If you make and market a mayhem machine that's used to slaughter, and your ads tout its catastrophic lethality, you should be held accountable. We anticipate pushback from the gun rights folks. They say it would be a hardship for business. I'm sorry. What about the lifelong hardship of families losing loved ones in a mass shooting? We've seen too many of those. Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Sutherland Springs, Las Vegas, San Bernardino, the list is long. Lawn darts were banned in 1988 by the Consumer Product Safety Commission after 3 children were killed. That pales in comparison to those 52 busloads of kids dying from gunfire every year with no action in response. You'd think the carnage from rural Lewiston, Maine, from an assault weapon spree would wake up Vermont lawmakers. It took 30 years to get a ban in Illinois, 13 years in Rhode Island, and 13 years just for a safe storage law here in Vermont. How many more years will we have to wait for an assault weapons ban? Even Governor Scott has said we are not immune. I read in the Valley News on February 10th that the pictures from Brown University's mass shootings were finally released 2 months after that bloodbath. But many of the images were redacted because they were so violent. Local police felt those pictures would deepen the trauma of victims' families and survivors. Not banning assault weapons is playing Russian roulette with Vermonters. Maybe only one chamber is loaded, but it only takes one. And more than 20 million of these combat-style firearms are owned by civilians. This isn't a game. Ask the folks in Lewiston, Maine, Uvalde, Texas, Parkland, Florida, Newtown, Connecticut, Littleton, Colorado, site of Columbine High School. The 2018 close call at Fairhaven, Vermont is close enough. Let's not wait for a tragedy here to act. Do the smart thing, ban assault weapons. 2 assault weapons made in Fairfax, Vermont at Century International Arms were used in mass shootings in 2019 within 1 week of each other. One at the El Paso Walmart massacre on August 3rd, 2019, 23 people were killed, 22 wounded. The other at the Gilroy, California Garlic Festival on July 28th, 2019, 3 people killed, 17 wounded. So Vermont exports mass murder weapons. Young people have a unique perspective on gun violence. Maria Ruiz, a 10th grader at Chicago's De La Salle Institute, wrote this poem, The Trigger Pulled. Her poem was part of that contest I created back in the 1990s to give kids a voice and address this senseless and lethal problem. Maria's wisdom really stirs me. Here is her poem, A Trigger Pulled. One by one, the sirens ring. They all hit the ground, hear the angels sing. In one round, through a sleepless night, a family's loss enters our sights. Bound by blood, with blood broken, the families grieve, their pain unspoken. And for what? Troubled teens, cheap thrills, or a robbery to pay some bills? No matter how or why or when, what matters is when this all will end. The struggle continues on and on until we go where no one's gone, to bring about what peace may lay beyond the violence we see today. Maria's poem reminds me of that line in the Bible, and a little child shall lead them. I keep at it, it's a marathon, even though I feel the urge to treat it like a sprint. I remain a pragmatic optimist. I firmly believe we're on the right side of history. You've been so patient hearing me out now. Before I wind this up, try this tonight. Step outside and look up at the moon. We've been there. 247,000 miles in the heavens. We cured TB and so many other diseases. The Berlin Wall came down. We can fix this. Gun violence is a man-made problem. There's a man-made solution. Deep down in your hearts, you know there is, if we have the will. It's not an us versus them struggle. We're all in this together. It's not a tug of war, it's a pull for peace. Thank you. Final words today are from Father Michael Flager of Chicago's St. Sabina Parish. Father Mike is a great advocate of gun reform and other causes. He walks his talk every day, and sometimes he gets arrested. I once went to a gun show with Father Mike in Harvey, Illinois on a Palm Sunday. Before we all went in, Father Mike said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I can't get arrested today. I got to give a sermon later on." Here are his words I want to leave with you. Our faith isn't what we do on Sunday, but what we do when we leave on Sunday. Thank you. Have a great week, everybody.